Welcome to GTC's Teaching Tidbits Blackboard Ultra. In this limited series, each episode we explore a technique, tip, practice, or idea to expand your knowledge of and comfort with using Blackboard Ultra. Lee McMinn from the Curriculum and Instructional Support Center, CISC for short, is back with us. Welcome, Lee.
Thanks, Rachel. It's good to be here.
Well, Blackboard, as you know, has been making continual updates to Ultra. So Lee is back to share some of the specific updates for November 2022. So Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you to share your teaching tidbit.
Thank you, Rachel. And yes, we do have a good bit of updates coming, or that have actually just been started in November. These actually came out on November 4th. We probably saw them on that Friday, and here's basically what they are. These are the main ones that are going to affect us the most. So the first thing we see here, this is the list, and I'm going to go through those and show you some screenshots and or some actual what it looks like. But we've had the course activity report under the analytics tab that's been added that gives us some great information, and I'll show you what those will be screenshots to not reveal actual student information. The gradebook view saved. This instructors are really going to like this. Enhanced student grades overview. We'll look at that a little bit. Big thing that a lot of people have been asking for, and it's finally here, are hotspot questions in Blackboard. This is the first rendition. Note there will be some improvements. So when I point this out and show you how it works, that's the basics. And then I'll tell you about some more details that's coming with that. Page breaks in tests and assignments. That means you can have multiple pages instead of them scrolling forever on a screen. You can group questions by pages and that sort of stuff. So that's a great thing. Student feedback option for manual columns. For those of you that are teaching face-to-face and want the students maybe to submit an assignment manually, on paper, you can create a grade column and actually give feedback for that now, which we didn't have that feedback option earlier. Unread messages indicator for courses and organizations. In the past, we just had a little dot that said you got message in that course. Now that little dot has a number in it and tells you how many unread messages you have for that particular course, not just overall. And then some auto save enhancements for lost connections. So that means like when a student is taking a test and they lose their internet connection, they will be warned. It's pretty obvious. If a student misses it, they just aren't looking at their screen. So we'll look at that and see what that looks like. But first of all, let's look at this course activity report under analytics tab. So when you go into your course, and this is an actual report, I notice I've hidden the student names, but you would click on the analytics option on the toolbar at the top. The first option that you see here is course activity. And under course activity, you have a couple options. You have this grid view, and all these little dots are each student and how they lie according to their grade on the left-hand or vertical bar, and then the hours and activity in the course. That means how many clicks in an hour or whatnot that they've done. Now, each of these dots represents a student. So when you click on or put your pointer on one of those dots, I'm zoomed in a little bit here, you've got that particular student. It tells you their name, it tells you their activity, and what their current grade is at this point in time. You can click the view details to go in a little bit more, and this is what you see on the view details. This is basically, both of these items are on the same page, but to make it fit so we could see it a little bit more, I kind of broke them up. But the top of the page shows that course activity for that week in the hours in the course. The purple is this particular student. So we can see that this student either spends above the amount of time that the average student does or below the amount of time. You can see here the week of September the 18th, they were much longer that week, spent much more time that week in the course than the average student did. And you can see that. Scroll down a little bit, and this shows that same student's activity and that student's grades according to or in relation to the rest of the class. And we can see that this student started out a little high, but now has dropped down below the class average, if you will, over their grades overall. So you can see that. You can go to the list view back on the main course activity page. You can go to this list, every student, their overall grade, that difference from what is expected or what is the course average, if you will, and their activity. And again, that's the amount of time, clicks, and moving around within the course. So we can see that some of these students, jumping through, you can get to the details over on the right-hand side. You can see the student, and you can click these little arrows to jump over and get more information. And what that little arrow will give you is this right here. You can see the average hours they've spent in the course on that date and time. This is that same student that I looked at earlier, or that we looked at earlier. And we can see the amount of time they spent, what their range is of the average hours, and then their activity, if it's higher than or lower than what the other students in the class are doing. So this can really help you see, hey, I got a student that's got really high grades and they're spending a lot of time in the course. Maybe you've got a student that's got high grades and they don't spend as much time in the course. Maybe that's because they already have a good foundation for that material, or vice versa. You can see all that with this report. So the course activity report can give us a lot of information for the students' activity and their progress in the course. Next, we have the Gradebook saved. I didn't do a screenshot. This is kind of easily explained. I'm not going to read the text. I'm just going to tell you, basically, instructors, when you go into the Gradebook, a lot of instructors like to see the grid view, like they normally used to seeing in the original course. Now, if you go there, when you leave the course and you come back, you'll be still at the grid view. So it remembers the last view that you had, and this is done by course, by visit. So in other words, if you go to the grid view in one course and leave it the standard list view in the next, it'll stay that way for each of those courses. So you don't have to always keep changing it. It saves you a little bit of time jumping back and forth. The next thing is this enhanced student grade overview. This is when you go to just the student view, it shows you the list of students. Then you can click on that student's name to see their grades on all the items that they've done so far. Well, when you click on the students, now we've got some additional information here at the top. We can see the date and time that they last accessed the course. It shows us their username here and their student ID number right here. So if you need to grab that real quick, it's there. If you want to go in and see that student's activity, kind of what we saw in that previous report, you can click here on the student activity to see more information on that. If the student had an accommodation, you would see up here in the very top left by their name, that accommodation tag, that little ribbon, pink ribbon, to show you they've got an accommodation. And you can click here to give them or modify their accommodations if you need to. And you can send that student a message straight from here. You don't have to leave and go back to messages. And then, of course, you have their grades per individual item that they have in that course, which you can look at. So they've just upped this a little bit, given us a little bit more information we can see on this screen. Next is the hotspot questions. This is what a lot of people have been looking for. When you go in to create a test, when you're in the edit area of the test and you click the little plus to add a new question, you'll see hotspot question with the little blue new button by it to indicate there it is. So you would click on that and actually go in and see that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to jump out of this PowerPoint presentation and jump over to an actual course where we have a hotspot set up. I'm going to show you what it looks like after the question has been set up. This is the page break, by the way. We'll come back to that. But this is what a hotspot question looks like. Let me show you what it looks like from the start. You would go here and click on to add the hotspot question. And it gives you a place that you can either drag in, so you could have your Windows Explorer open and you could drag the image in here, or you could click on this button here and go and find the image that you wanted to use for your hotspot question. Once that image is loaded, basically, we'll go in and do edit. You type in your question here at the top. So you're telling the student what it is you want them to pin, if you will. Now, again, remember, this is the first rendition, so you can put multiple hotspots on the question. You can see here, I've got 5 different hotspots on this. And the question here is for them to pin or label the cities that have more than 90,000 in population. All right, not all of these are true. You get at the end, now to add a hotspot, you would click right here, the little button that says add hotspot. When you click on that, it sticks the new hotspot on here that you can then drag around. You can resize it. You can make it very large, very small. So if I wanted to narrow it down to like just a city, and we'll put Myrtle Beach here, then below the question, you have a list of all of your hotspots by numbers, and you can give it a description if you want to. So we'll call this one Myrtle Beach, and it does not have a population that is greater than 90,000, so I'm not going to check off the box. The hotspots that have the check mark are the ones that would be true for that question. Now, what some are looking for is to be able to label multiple things, kind of like a labeling activity. That's not here yet. That's coming in one of the next renditions of the hotspot, where you can have multiple hotspots and be able to select them almost for different question types. Right now, you would have to reuse this picture and create a different question set for it. So just be aware of that, but updates are coming for this in the next few months. Now, once you have this set and you save it, when the student takes it, it works a little bit, well, actually, it's actually not hard, but this is, I want to point something out that you'll need to either put in your instructions or let the students know when they do this hotspot question. If, you know, it's always helpful if you make it, I don't need the student profile saved for right now. If you make that test available to the students, see, I couldn't see it when I went into my preview student because it wasn't available. Now let's try it again. But what it is, students have to click on the, this is the first page where I gave them instructions. They're going to continue on. The students have to click this add selection right here. They have to select the pin. When they click on that, it's going to place a pin on the image, and now they would drag that pin and place it anywhere on the image. Now, I'm just labeling. Now I want to put a second pin out there. I have to click on the pin again, and I can move that to where I think would be the right answer. And so for however many times I want to put it out there, you can. And the student can answer. Now, you may want to tell them if you have 6 places, are there 6 options, or maybe not. They can do as many or as few as they need to, and then they would submit it. They can change their option if they want to. If they decide to move it, they don't have to remove the pin, but they would set that there, and then they would submit. All right. So just be aware that you'll have to let the students know that they need to click that pin. Now, you also have the option. I'm going to close that. We're getting out of the student. I'll save that so we could look at it later if I needed to. You do have the option, and I didn't show this at the bottom of the question. You do have the option to show the hotspots. This is turned on by default. Now, I can't change it since someone has already taken the test. But if no student had taken the test yet, you could turn this on, and each of these hotspots would appear. They would not have a number by them, but a student would see these blue dashes. And so that kind of shows them where the hotspots are if you wanted them to see that. So just be aware of that. So that's basically the hotspot capability that we have. The other thing is the page break. You can now add page breaks. Now, again, this is the first rendition. In coming renditions of this or coming updates to this, you'll be able to do a lot more with the page breaks. Right now, it just creates page breaks. If you choose to randomize questions, it will warn you and tell you that the page breaks will be removed. In coming versions, you will be able to randomize by the page. So if you wanted to put page 2 and 4, you wanted to randomize the questions on page 2 and 4, but maybe you just had some essay questions on pages 1 and 3, you could do that and those would not be randomized. The workaround right now is to use question pools. You can put question pools on page 1 and page 2 and let that randomize the questions for you, the pool itself, not actually the test randomizing the questions. So there is kind of a workaround for that. But in the future, you will be able to randomize by page. Other ways you could use this, you could put all your multiple choice questions on page 1, put your essay questions on page 2, put your matching questions or whatever on page 3. Those are just some examples. Or as we've done here, put your instructions for the test on page 1. Then in page 2, 3, and 4, the subsequent pages would be your regular questions. So just be aware of that. All right. Some of the other things that we're going to look at here that student feedback option for manual columns. So we'll close this, jump over to the Gradebook, and let's say you created a manual column. This is a manual column right here, this article review. If I go in to look at it, I can see that my students in the course, notice I now have a feedback option for a manually created column. We didn't have this before. Again, to add feedback, you can type in the grade. Once you've graded it, click on add feedback. And then you have the feedback dialog box where you can type in feedback for this manual column. All right. So be sure to save it once you type it in, and you can provide feedback this way that we didn't have before. Next thing is the unread messages. Now I'm in with my system admin. My system admin is not an official instructor in any course, but I am in a few courses as backup, and I can see that I have some messages here. When I click on the messages area, notice it showed me I had 15. Look here, I have 6 unread messages in this course. I have 8 unread messages in this course. So we can see how many messages are actually there instead of just being a dot and saying, how many do I have? I don't know, have to go find out. Now we can see how many messages we have. All right, so yeah, I know that's bad. Don't have 47 unread messages in a course. That's not good practice. Anyway, so that's that. And then the last thing I want to show you is the autosave enhancement. So if a student's taking a test, this is on the Blackboard help site. If a student is taking a test and they lose internet connection, maybe their Wi-Fi connection is in and out, something like that. Maybe they've gone to Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or Panera Bread, wherever, and they've jumped on that Wi-Fi connection that's not very secure. If they lose connection, they will see this banner which pops up. I don't think it's at the center, but it's on the page. They can't miss it. That tells them their internet connection was lost and that any changes they had made just before the connection was lost were saved. All right. And it tells them check their internet connection, or maybe hold up until you know your connection is back, because otherwise anything they do while their connection is lost won't be saved. Now, it tells them again that their connection is lost. They'll see this little dialog box. It says the latest changes were saved. Check your internet connections, as you'll not be able to submit your work until your connection is restored. All right. Now, if they click OK, this box will disappear. But until they get the message, which we see right here below, that their connection was restored, anything they do in the test will not be saved. So the student should wait until they see this connection restored, and then any changes they make after that, of course, will be saved. So this is a great notice to the students that they can see if their connection was lost or not. And they'll see this active in a test or while they're working on an assignment. All right. So that's the updates that we have, the big updates that's come out in November. We have some more updates coming in December. I will tell you this, the updates coming in December will not affect grading, test, or anything gradable like that. All the colleges have asked Blackboard not to put out any changes in December because that would be right near exam time. And we don't want any changes coming to the grade book or to test or assignments during exams. All right. So that's what's going to happen in December. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact CISC. And I know that Rachel will post that contact information here shortly.
Thank you so much, Lee. These updates are really exciting.
Yes.
All great things. And I know once people start watching this, they're going to be very excited about all of those new features. And along the way, you just gave us some really helpful reminders as well, as just even make sure our things that need to be visible to students are visible.
It happens.
It happens, we forget, and thankfully Ultra makes it very easy to change that pretty quickly. But thank you for taking the time to show all of these updates. I know I have to go back and look at some of these again so that I know what to prepare for upcoming classes. But again, some really great, exciting updates. I think one of my favorites are just some of the new features in the grade book.
Yeah.
Especially, which will be so helpful in navigating that.
That's exactly right. And we're getting closer and closer to having almost all the same tools we had in original, plus a bunch of extra things that we never had in original. So I think we're making some really good strides forward, and these Ultra courses are getting better and better, and students are really appreciating that too. Yes,
I love that. And again, it's a great reminder. It's all about the students and really enhancing their success. But these tools help us make that possible.
Correct.
So very excited about some of those new features coming.
Yep.
Well, and you heard Lee just say, if you have questions, if you want to continue the conversation, please feel free to reach out to him. His email's here on the screen, lee.mcminn@gvltec.edu. You can also reach out to the CISC department email, cisc@my.gvltec.edu, and a member of their team will reach out and connect with you to help you with those questions or to continue that conversation. Well, that's our teaching tidbit for this episode of Blackboard Ultra, and we'll see you next time.